So I'd love to introduce to you Karim Abu-Omar, who is from the FA University in Erlangen in Nuremberg. Karim, please join me on the stage.
Okay, yes, so welcome. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you also for the organizers of this conference to give room for a very important topic. And this topic is not a feel-good topic. Yeah, I have about 30 minutes now to talk with you about climate change, planetary health, and as you see there, the obvious answer is no. Healthy people on a sick planet will not work. Yeah. So let's go over the facts. Yeah, let's go over the hard, robust science, and let's have a look at the vital science of our planet. Yeah. And Antonio Guterres, the UN General Secretary, says it, Greta Thunberg says it, the world is on fire. Yeah. And why is that? Yeah. So, these are our global CO2 emissions. And you see the small dent over there? You see it here. That's COVID. So, since industrial age, we have pumped CO2 into our atmosphere. How do we do it? We burn gas, we burn coal, we burn oil. The estimates are that we will continue to do this. Some estimates say, well, you know, we will peak at emitting CO2 in the next few years, yeah, and then it will kind of flatline. Yeah. But overall, we seem to burn more and more fossil fuels. This year will set a record, and next year will set a record, and even COVID didn't really dent this. What happens with all the CO2? Obvious, right? It ends up in our atmosphere. And this is a global gold standard for measuring CO2 concentration. It's from the Mauna Loa Observatory on the island of Hawaii. And you see the curve here. It goes up, up, up. And you see the red zigzag line. What is a zigzag line? These are the seasons. If the northern hemisphere is green, we have leaves on the tree, then these leaves suck out CO2 from the atmosphere. So the level is a bit lower. But then fall hits, foliage hits, yeah, and all the CO2 goes in the atmosphere again. Yeah? And you see, yeah, we are approaching now the 28th conference of the parties. And that is a mechanism that we have initiated by the United Nations to limit global heating. Yeah? And all other 27 conference of the parties have not changed a bit. It's a very linear upwards trajectory. And we have hit now 420 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. What is the safe level? 350 parts per million. So we are way, way above this. What happens with the CO2 in the atmosphere? Yeah? The CO2 kind of insulates our planet. Yeah? Overall, the percentage of CO2 in our atmosphere is quite low, 0.3%. But think tinfoil. Yeah? Small things can make a big difference and insulate. Yeah? And here you see what's happening with all the CO2 in the atmosphere. We are setting records year after year. Yeah? This year will probably be the most warm one we ever faced since 100,000 years. Estimates are that we will set a new record next year. We don't know what happens then. Yeah? And you feel the changes of temperature in your country. Talk to your parents, grandparents about how winter was or how summer was. Things will have changed. Yeah? We in Germany are now 2 degrees warmer, yeah, already. The Paris Agreement states we shouldn't go beyond 1.5 degree. We are at 1.3 degrees this year, and no end in sight. What has climate scientists really, really alarmed is what has happened this year and last year. Yeah? You see by how much we break records. Yeah? These are the global September temperatures, and you see the September of this year. Yeah? And this is half degree higher than all previous Septembers in history. It has never been as hot as it is today. Yeah. And climate scientists are worried, are terrified. I talked with a climate scientist a few years back and asked her, and she is studying Arctic ice sheets. And I asked her, well, put your hand on your heart. How serious is the situation? She said, we are fucked. That was a short answer. Okay. So politicians talk a lot, and a lot of times they will pretend everything is fine. So probably for my presentation, this is the most sobering slide. It's called the production gap. It came out a couple of weeks ago. If politicians talk, they talk the dotted line. These are the lines that would put us towards a 1.5 degree or 2 degree target. They talk the dotted line. But if we check what they are doing, it's either this line or the red line. We are not a little bit off course, we are way off course. Way, way off course. Yeah? If we continue like this, we have run through our CO2 budget for the 1.5 degree target in 5 years. If you talk to climate scientists, they will tell you, no way we meet the 1.5 degree target. The best hope is that we don't overshoot too much and then can do carbon capture, technology that we don't have in place right now to bring us down again. Estimates are, as of now, we are shooting towards 2.5 degree global heating by the end of the century. On land mass, that's kind of twice. So for Germany, we will talk about 4 or 5 degree global heating. We are not used to such temperatures in Germany. Neither are the plants nor the animals. That's a different temperature zone. Very bad news for Germany. Maybe later somebody of you can talk about Spain and the situation in Spain, because I know also there the predictions are quite dire. And it's killing us. Yeah, that's a study that came out this summer. 61,000 people died in Europe alone, yeah, due to the consequences of heat waves. This will not get better. Yeah. This was probably one of the coolest summers we ever faced in Europe. Yeah. And that is just how it is. Yeah. And those who are dying are usually the ones that are more vulnerable, have preconditions, are old, have apartments with no air conditioning that can't cool down, they dehydrate, yeah. They die the silent death. Yeah. And on top of that all, there's a huge injustice, yeah, because the rich countries, I come from Germany, so Germany is one of the richest countries, they emit the CO2. Yeah, and so you see here, the darker the blue, the more they emitted traditionally. Yeah. Here in Germany, we emitted 6 to 8% of all global CO2 emissions because we industrialized so early. Yeah. And who suffers the consequences? The poor nations, the global south. The African region, there are countries that hardly emit any CO2. They suffer the worst consequences. How wrong is this? Yeah. So again, sorry for being so sober, but then that is the backdrop for everything that I will talk about now. Yeah? And that is, how does all of this influence how we do sports and exercise? The first thing we have to realize is that this is a bidirectional relationship. Exercising in very hot weather is not so comfortable, as you know. Yeah? But then, how we exercise influences also how our planet is doing, because our exercise and sport is not carbon neutral. Yeah? I will talk much more about this direction, about how exercise influences planetary health. But first, on one slide, how does the weather influence how we exercise? And you see here, on the left hand, this U-shaped, reverse U-shape. Yeah? We can't say on a global level that we exercise more or less when it's hotter. Yeah? It really depends where we are. Yeah? In Germany, it's a good example now. In fall and spring, it might be a little bit warmer, and that is more pleasant, and people exercise more. But then in July, August, it might be too hot. And then if it's over 35 degrees, 30 degrees, it's really uncomfortable, and people exercise less. Yeah? So depending on where you live, global heating will influence physical activity, sport prevalences. The more obvious other fact is that exercising in heat causes heat stress, and that's what you see on the right-hand side. And the hotter it is, the more humid it is, the more heat stress people will accrue. And that can be a health risk. Yeah? But again, I wanted to talk much more about the other direction. Yeah? So how does sport and exercise influence planetary health? And you realize now I use the term planetary health. Yeah? And that is in public health a kind of a new but becoming more and more popular concept. Traditionally in public health, we were concerned about the health of individuals. How is a person doing? Is a person healthy or sick? But then we realized a lot of factors influence the health of people and the population. And we developed the ideas of public health. How is a population doing? Yeah, we know the environment, the built environment, all those things affect health of population, so we looked at it. But now, in the last 5 to 10 years, we start looking at health as an even more holistic global concept. Eco-health, One Health, planetary health, Gaia. Yeah? And with this concept, we define health as something being quite all-encompassing. Yeah? How's the planet doing? How are animals doing? How are plants doing? That's the concept of planetary health. Yeah? And I will now use this concept to look at sport and exercise. And that's a fairly new perspective. Because suddenly, we don't look at an exercise of physical activity and say, well, this is good for health, and this is maybe not so good for health. Boxing. Not the training, but really boxing or something like that. Or concussions in football, rugby, and sports like this. Suddenly there's this other axis, and we can look at things from a perspective of planetary health. Yeah? And then here, the blue bubble, these are the win-wins. Hey, pretty cool. Good for individual health, and good for the planet. We like that. Yeah? And the examples are quite obvious. Walking and cycling. Because if you walk or cycle, you don't sit in a car. And if you don't sit in a car, you don't burn CO2, burn fossil fuels and produce CO2. Yeah? And how is that with urban gardening? Why is urban gardening up there? Again, the evidence for the health effect of gardening are very robust. It's good for mental health, good for your diet, it connects you with other people if you want, all great. What does it do for the planet? Think food security, think inner cities, heat islands in inner cities in summer. Yeah? The more green and leafy a city is, the cooler a city is. We need green cities. Yeah? So here we see the win-wins, and that's great, good news. But then you see, if we look at sport and exercise, it's not all good news. A lot of those things are good for people, but not so good for the planet. So let's run through some of those things. Who plays tennis? How many tennis balls do you use per season? 30, 40? That's not too bad. But tennis balls are an environmental disaster. Why? Because the chemicals needed are transported to a developed country, they are manufactured there, then shipped back to the to those who play tennis, and then they are usually trashed. You can't use a tennis ball for maybe an hour, all right, half an hour of play. Yeah? A professional tennis match uses 40 tennis balls. They hit the ball so hard, men and women, 40. You can give them to dogs. That's the only thing you can do with them. There's only one sport that needs more balls than tennis. Any idea? Any idea? Oh, come on. Well, if you're really bad at golf, right? Baseball. 100 for a professional match. If it hits the ground, the ball is out. What? 100? Yeah. Tennis also uses the water. Yeah. 450,000 liters per court. That's a study from the United States on a clay surface. 450,000 liters. Yeah. Golf. I'm sorry, maybe some of you play golf. I don't want to offend you, but it's just how it is. The land use, the use of pesticides, the fertilizers, the watering, yeah? The carbon footprint of golf is huge. And usually there are not many people on a golf course. It's just how the sport is. Yeah? Anybody like to swim? Anybody like skiing? On artificial snow? You know what's coming, right? So 1 hectare of artificial snow needs a lot of energy to produce and a lot of water. And we are building more and more ski resorts. Or ski resorts have to adapt to warmer climate and need more and more artificial snow. The prognosis is here for Europe, I guess 20-25% of ski resorts, no, even too warm for artificial snow in the next 50 years. Yeah, the indoor pools, swimming is great, it has so robust health effects, but the carbon footprint in countries such as Germany in winter is huge. We don't have enough renewable energy. And that means we need carbon-based energy, and that heats up the planet more. And where are the indoor pools? Again, in the developed nations. Yeah, we produce the CO2 emissions. Whoa! So that is how the world looks for sport and exercise if we take this more broad planetary perspective. I'm not saying it's not good for individual health, but it's obviously not good for the planet. Yeah? And so somehow the balance sheet looks odd. Yeah? A lot of times we boost the individual health, but we ruin planetary health. Yeah? So looking at it this way, it's the facilities, it's nature habitats, yeah, rock climbing, hiking, good for people, not good for the planet, not good for wildlife and vegetation. Yeah, the sports clothing we all wear, it usually needs some amount of fossil fuel. I guess it's a tin of fossil fuel for a new sports jersey. Yeah. Transporting through venues to league plays, yeah, flying to the Boston Marathon, all those things. Yeah. And obviously the waste we produce as facilities. And if you compare the carbon footprint of different sports and the one of nations, this is how it looks like. Yeah? So the darkish columns, they show sport and exercise. Yeah? So if you're from Frankfurt, fly to New York to take part in the marathon, these are 4 tons of CO2. Yeah? If you do nature sport, it's 1.5 tons of CO2. These are data from Germany, and this is just transportation. If you live in Nepal, your carbon footprint for the whole year is 0.5 tons for everything you do. So engaging in Germany nature sport triples this. That is crazy, right? So if we accept this, then obviously the next question is, what should we do about it? Yeah. And obviously, there are no easy answers, but I will talk with you about some of those things that could be done. Yeah? And if I do so, I think you are professionals. Yeah, you are the ones that can multiply messages. And so it's, I guess, an important part of my presentation to think through. And I'm really looking forward to the discussions we will have later today and questions you might have. Yeah? In a way, it is easy, right? You could, and we all could connect our thinking much closer to planetary health. And when we think sport and exercise, we could think at the same time the people and the planet and climate justice. Yeah? Because as I told you earlier, it's not very just what is happening. Yeah? And you could connect your thinking also to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. I will later give you examples about how to do this. Yeah? And here you all know the tiles. Yeah? And it's maybe a good way to start thinking about those interconnections, not only between sport and exercise and planetary health, but also sport and exercise and the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah? Think gender equality. Think global inequalities. Some nations have and some don't. Yeah? Think peace and justice and clean water, climate action, clean energy. All those things are interconnected, and sport and exercise can really make a difference here if we integrate this in our thinking. Yeah? Now that is a little bit abstract, and let's get more practical now. Yeah? So what is grassroots sport? I asked ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and that's what it came up with. That's not bad, right? No, that's good. And you are all familiar with this. So spot on. But then I said to ChatGPT, come on. We have a planetary crisis. There are the Sustainable Development Goals. Can you do better? And it gave me this long list of things. And I was, yeah, good. So I said, please make it short. I have to give a presentation here. That's actually not bad, right? So, that's the definition ChatGPT proposed. If we would switch to this definition, we would integrate the Sustainable Development Goals and planetary health into our thinking. Yeah? And this is a paradigm shift, because suddenly everything changes. Yeah? Because suddenly we have to ask all those questions. Yeah? Do we really need a new sport facility? Maybe we should make the existing ones more climate friendly. Yeah? And where do we need them? Here in the rich countries or in the poor countries? And if we do nature sport, how can we limit the impact that we have? Yeah. And do we really need this new functional jersey and this new pair of shoes? If you run marathon, you know the trend is going in the direction one pair of shoes per marathon. That's not sustainable. Yeah. And that goes at the core of our thinking a lot of times when it's about sport and exercise, mass events. Yeah? Most federations I've talked to in the last year all want to grow, more participants, more events, but this will cause more emissions. Yeah? And that is no good. Yeah? So we got to change our thinking here maybe, and I will give you now in the last few minutes that are left, a few of the examples that we have worked on and other scientists have worked on that can contribute to making this paradigm shift in our thinking. Yeah. And I believe it starts in your head and our heads. Yeah? On which side of the road do you gonna live in the future? And our children and grandchildren. Yeah? There cannot be business as usual. Yeah? And if these are the things in your head, we will end up on this side of the road in the future. And that is no good. Nobody wants to live there. Yeah? But here, these are the things we got to do. Greener sport facilities, I will not talk much about it because it's obvious, renewable energy is better insulation. Yeah? But I will talk a little bit about raising awareness, educating people, greener sport, less travel, and all those things. So how does the green side of the road look like? What could you do as organizations in the future to combine promoting sport and exercise with promoting planetary health? Educating people, and you see here the definition of the UNESCO. It's important. Yeah? And so organizations have to equip themselves with the knowledge and skills to tackle this issue. The organizations represented here need to be more knowledgeable about the impacts that they produce on health. Yeah? And if you have achieved this, you can integrate it into your daily practice, yeah? in coaching and in all types of sport activities. Very simple things. This will not change the world, but it might in the long run make a difference. Yeah? We developed this and published this last year. It's just a small piece of the puzzle. Yeah? A checklist to make exercise classes more climate friendly. Just, having the paradigm shift in your head and now thinking about, well, where do we set up the program? Can people get there by walking and biking? And what type of exercise do we do? If we do Nordic walking outside, it's more climate friendly than swimming inside. Yeah? And how do we advertise the program? And is the instructor a role model? Is the instructor briefed? Can tell people about the active travel options to the program? Can tell people, well, you really don't have to dress fancy and buy new clothes all the time. Maybe you can have a second-hand bazaar or something like this. Yeah? And trying to go from there and slipping into the exercise program certain issues on climate change, planetary health. We need to figure out how this works, how people react, but that is an easy step. But that was the easy part, because obviously we need to do more. Yeah? And we need to do more, not in a few pilot projects, but everywhere, all the time, and fast. We know the carbon footprint of quite a few sports. Yeah? And I've displayed a few here that seem to come with a quite low carbon footprint. They don't take up much space. They don't need much equipment, or they need equipment that is quite durable. With a frisbee, you can play quite a long time. You don't need 40 for a game, hopefully. Table tennis, yeah, you can play it outside. Yeah, the things you play with, the ball, everything is quite durable. Street basketball. Yeah? So these are the things we should grow. Good for people, good for the planet. And then you know how it is in nutrition. If you ask a dietitian, what should I do to limit my carbon footprint? They will say, eat seasonal, eat regional, eat organic. And we need to transform this to our thinking about sport. Do sport regional, because then you don't have to travel that much. And do it seasonal. Yeah? If you want to swim, maybe do it when you can swim outside. And if you want to go and do ice skating, then maybe you can do it in winter. Don't need an ice skating rink. Yeah? So these are probably good messages to send to people. Yeah? And now comes the hardest part. What do we do with the sports that, by their very nature, have a very high negative impact on the environment? I honestly believe, as hard as it sounds, we cannot grow those anymore. Rather, we should try to degrow those. Yeah? And I display here golf, skiing on artificial snow. There are quite a few others out there. Yeah? We have to be aware of it. And these are the hard discussions within your organizations, within the whole global sports movement. Yeah? But we have to tackle those hard questions. We cannot stay away from them. If you look at studies, for some sports, 80% of emissions are just caused by travel. No matter on which level. Obviously, the professional sport is horrible. They fly all the time. But it also happens on the grassroots level. And we teamed up with computer scientists this year, actually, and we looked at the carbon footprint of amateur football, men and women, lowest league, 10th division, 11th division in Germany. And you know, football is very popular in Germany. We picked this region around the city of Cologne. And our analysis, we did this now for about 1,000 teams. Yeah? Here are, in this region, there are 270 teams in 20 plus leagues, all on the same level. This is the lowest level. Yeah? So they are not really good, but they enjoy their sport. And for those 3,700 league games for last season, they traveled 116,000 kilometers per car. And you don't fit a football team into one car. You need 3 or 4 cars. They will not have buses on the lowest level. They take their private cars. Yeah? So that causes 34 tons of CO2 per car. So 3 or 4 cars, you can do the math. Yeah? Okay, you can use this for carbon accounting and stuff. But now comes the smart part. We asked the computer, well, can we do better? Can they arrange the teams better? And they play against each other if they have one color. Yeah? And the computer said, yes, we can. Yeah? So you can rapidly reduce the emissions by 20–30% in average, yeah, by just rearranging who plays against whom, because computers are simply better in doing this. Even the computers nowadays take 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, to come up with a solution. But we managed now, and we even played around with different game formats. Yeah, you can even go to 20 tons of CO2 per car. Yeah? So these are the ideas we have as scientists, but now you have to pick them up, and you have to pick it up rapidly. We got to scale those solutions that are out there, yeah, and transform our thinking about sport and the environment. Yeah? So I'm almost at the end. Yeah? So what's left to say? Yeah? I believe it's a decision you got to make, your organizations have to make. Yeah? On which side of the road do you want to live? On which side of your road should your children and grandchildren live? Yeah? And we have to act accordingly. No time for tokenism. And no time for delaying action anymore. Yeah. Ultimately, it's very easy. Yeah. No grassroots sport on a dead planet. It might be a more dystopian future, or maybe it's a future we can adjust to. Yeah. It's our choice. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you for a very, very interesting presentation and new take, because I think I work for your HealthNet, and we've definitely started, obviously, like everyone, looking at the whole issue of sustainability and incorporating that into the work of public health, but this is a new take slightly. But it reminds me of a project that we ended in 2019 that was called Inherit, and looked at the triple win. So how can what's good for the planet is good for health, but the part that I'm missing a little bit, so that's the comment, is the equity part. It's not necessarily good for equity and health equity. So I think it would be really interesting to also incorporate that as to, and it was a little bit in the very start of obviously, you know, the people who are causing this aren't, are suffering the most aren't causing this. But so many of these solutions also don't promote equity, so to constantly keep that angle. So then I think the question maybe is also to what extent have you been looking at that and looking at kind of these solutions also from the sport and the grassroots sector to also make sure, I think there's a lot of good potential there also, but to also how do you also maintain that, not just the planetary lens, but the equity lens and everything that's being done.
No, thank you for this question. It's very important. And obviously we should. And obviously, again, it raises more uncomfortable questions. I give you an example. I was joining a panel discussion, and it was about Germany hosting potentially or submitting a bid to the 2036 Olympics, Summer Games. And then I asked the question to the panelists, well, should Germany host another Olympic Games? Maybe those, if it's about developing infrastructure and everything, maybe it should go more to the developing nations. Maybe we shouldn't do this because we have already emitted so much carbon. There were 5 panelists on the panel. They refused to answer the question. They didn't want, they just moved on. And that's not the right way, obviously. These are hard questions. There are no easy answers, but we got to tackle those. And so climate justice is one of them, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I wanted to say thought-provoking, but more really just eye-opening from everything you shared. Coming from a public institution, which is, well, as you demonstrated, not the best record. No, could you share some of your discussions in this with the public sector? How has this discussion been going? How have you perceived it? And if you know any specific cases where they have some of these suggestions that you put forward have been implemented or support?
Well, I believe the scientific community has received this well. I've given now a few talks about this. And a lot of my fellow scientists and colleagues start thinking in the direction of planetary health when it's about physical activity promotion. With sports federation, with you people, I'm at the beginning. Sometimes I feel you are not that fast. Maybe it's new for you. How can I speed you up? And a colleague of mine is a psychologist. So I chat with her a lot of times. Gosh, you know, we got to move faster. How do we get people to move faster? But there are no easy recipes. Probably it's a mix of top-down leadership, but also bottom-up co-production of the things we need. But everything we need to do fast, and this is a challenge.
Thank you. We had one on this side. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Karim. Excellent presentation. My name is Ben Sanders from the International Platform on Sport and Development. And this planetary crisis you've outlined so well is, obviously a critical issue. We're doing a panel after this on how can sport better serve society in times of crisis, and this is one of the greatest crises we face. And we need to move fast and we need to act well. My sort of question/comment is, you focused a lot on grassroots sport, and I understand that because that's why we're here. But I would argue, and the research would back this up, that grassroots sport is actually a more sustainable form of sport than elite or professional sport. We can try reform grassroots sport, but it has very limited impact. I think we should be trying to reform elite and professional sport, which are less likely to improve health, whereas grassroots sport, physical activity, sport for development, have been shown to have an impact on health, education, well-being, and other aspects, and has a much greater carbon footprint. So it's all great getting individuals to change some form of behavior here, and we can think about how we organize grassroots sport. But really, I think if we want to change the dial here, we have to challenge the broader sports system, the professional sport, the regional competitions, the elite sport infrastructure, which is disproportionately impacting not only the environment but health as well. And to end, I would say we need to invest more in grassroots sport and less in elite sport. Yes, more in sustainable grassroots sport, but by its very nature, it is more sustainable than elite, professional, organized, competitive sport. Thanks.
No, thank you. That's good that you bring this up. Yeah, and I guess partly I agree, partly I disagree with you. Obviously, professional sport is horrible when it comes to sustainability. Yeah. What we did is we calculated men's UEFA Champions League and how much they travel for the upcoming season. 300,000 kilometers in total. And then you can say, well, these are the teams, and the teams are not really, maybe we staff 30, 40 people. But thousands and thousands of fans will also travel those 300,000 kilometers, mostly by plane. Yeah? So yes, the professional sports, they are role modeling the grassroots sport, and they are doing a horrible job when it comes to sustainability. And we have to approach them. Yeah, they can't get away with this. But then again, if I look at total emissions, probably, as we saw for football, Germany, the lowest leagues, only the lowest league will emit more CO2 compared to the Bundesliga 1. These are per person. The emissions are much smaller, definitely, yeah. But then in total, and that's what planet Earth is caring about, yeah, it's also the grassroots sport that causes a lot of emissions. So it's not a good argument to say, well, you know, the professionals should change things. We not, yeah. Relative seen, yes, we are doing much better in grassroots sport, but still, we have to bring carbon emissions down across all sectors of society, and that also means grassroots sport.
Thank you. So if you have more questions, more thoughts to share with Karim, please do. Here is a small token of our appreciation. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Karim.